The Federal Reserve is in big trouble, and I'm going to tell you why. You stick with me, I'll show you the details. The first thing I want to look at is the Fed issues. I'll bring that front and center. And then the second thing is the financial turbulence. As a result of the actions of the central bank, this is going to affect people's jobs. We're going to talk about jobs today. We're going to talk about employment. So much to cover. Let's begin. Throughout this video, I want you to keep in mind where the central bank is at right now. You see the Federal Reserve constantly talking about the eventual pivot that's coming, but the markets are kind of reading it in a very unusual manner. I've been covering this recently, but just understand where we are today is kind of towards the end of what they call the terminal rate, which is the rate at which they'll stop increasing interest rates. They do tell us that will probably be somewhere around 5%. And a lot of individuals believe that they're going to start cutting interest rates really quickly after that. We don't know until the time comes, but that's the expectation. Payrolls and wages blow past expectations, flying in the face of Fed rate hikes. So again and again, the jobs numbers come out and hey, it's so fantastic. There's a lot more detail to that. Of course, if you're going to look at the jobs numbers based on one type of survey, it's going to tell you something. That's the establishment survey. Great. But when we start looking at it in other forms, well, then you start to get a different picture. And so, like I said, you can use different sets of data and it starts to explain things differently. If I'm just going to look at the U3 unemployment rate, I'm not going to get all the details. That's why on this channel, I bring you every piece of the puzzle. So don't forget to hit that subscribe. Look, consumer spending jumped in October as inflation eased. Personal spending rose 0.8% with new vehicle purchases helping drive the gain. What I want to note with this is that when you see inflation coming down, that's not prices coming down. That's a month over month or year over year number that you're looking at. So it still might be extremely high and it still might be higher than it was just before the number came out, like each month or each year. But they're going to tell you as if it's coming down, but it's the gain that's reduced. That's all. If it's, for instance, from 8% year over year and goes down to 7%, it's still up 7%. But they don't show you that way. Anyway, the point here is that consumer spending is up because people have to buy more stuff, and that includes their basic essentials. That includes food, that includes their energy, and all of this has risen considerably over the last couple years. American households ramped up their spending in October, heading into the holiday season, taking advantage of the jump in income and a slight easing of still high inflation. This is not true, and I wanted to bring it to you because I'm showing you what they're saying, but I need to dissect that a little bit more because you look around this time frame and I can tell you my experience myself in what I have seen in my e-commerce world. And in e-commerce, you do get this every year. It's normal, but I found it to be more pronounced this time around, in which we saw leading up, like in those couple weeks prior to Boxing Week, Black Friday, I should say, and then Cyber Monday, there was a dip down in the purchases that people make. Why? Well, if I just wait a week or if I wait 2 weeks, I'm going to get a better deal. And of course, myself and just about everybody else puts on their discounts during that period. Why? Because it's all competitive. They're going to go with the best sales. And so that's what you've got to do to stay in business. So during this period of time, more sales occur. And then what happens after the few days, that weekend? Well, of course, less sales because a lot of the people were buying around that time. Now, things can pick up and so on, but generally during this period, it's people looking for deals and they're going to wait. Like in my personal circumstances, what I was doing in the months leading up to this point here was that I had a list of things that I needed, a shelf. I needed a shelf to buy. Now, I didn't really need it right away. I could wait a while. So that was probably back in, let's say, September or even August. And I said to myself, I need a shelf at some point. So I'm going to put it on my list and then I'm going to wait until Black Friday because I know that shelf is going to be on sale. And I did that. You may have done the same thing. And yeah, I got it for what was significantly cheaper. I got a lot of products. I got my internet at half of the price simply by calling on Black Friday. The point is, I am a consumer by buying that item but I waited for the opportunity to get the sale. So the skewing of the data here is something that I just wanted to interject. Look at this. This particular article is talking about one individual, but kind of like an experience for so many people. And the labor force itself is a mess. It's a mess right now. And they're talking about how the fact that he does DoorDash. So he's delivering the food, and it depends on when he's working and so on, how it skews the numbers. He earned his first paycheck on July 4th. While he is technically back in the labor market, gig work, like his, isn't well measured in the jobs data. If many men are taking a similar path but do not work every week, they might be overlooked in surveys, which ask if somebody worked for pay in the previous week to determine whether they were employed. That's why these type of surveys that they call the establishment survey is not a very good indication of how many jobs are actually being created. You got to understand, they're not actually tabulating each and every job. That would be very expensive. That would be difficult. They take a survey and they kind of extrapolate that. So this is what you need to understand here. Number one, is that, look, if he's working DoorDash, I would have to say, I've never done that, but I would have to say that you're probably not earning a good salary. I mean, that's his only job. I think he was laid off, I think it says. So he's making some money. He's bringing some income in. He is technically employed if he worked that week, but is he making enough to keep up with life? And of course, the cost of living increases inflation. I doubt it. I doubt it. You see, he's employed, unemployment rate at whatever, 3.7% or whatever it is. But is he really employed, like fully employed? No. That's the situation that so many people are in today. And I think it's just not really understood how significant this is, because you can't have a strong economy with this type of job situation. More Americans leave the workforce as participation rate drops again. This is unbelievable to see it right now. And again, the numbers are always going to be skewed, but I think that it's not a good direction. So you're just looking at the shrinking workforce. U.S. labor force participation rate fell for the third straight month in November. So that's the trend. Like, you're always going to see these fluctuations up or down, but it's the trend. And that's not a very good trend. We did see that dip down in 2020, obviously. It has been climbing. The general direction has been climbing, but over the last little while, not a good thing. I don't know what these people are doing necessarily, but it looks to be something where, you've got a big problem. I mean, there's countries that have demographics problems where they know they just don't have a way out. There's the pension fund problems where, you've got people that had been paying into these pension funds, and now, okay, at a certain point, you need more people to pay in so that you can pay the people coming out. That's just the age, the way it works. And you've got the participation rate, which has not been very strong at all. You can't support these things in this way. The Fed's path to a Goldilocks economy just got a little more complicated. If you've got the strong numbers coming out of the job situation, that's what they're showing us, not what I tell you. I'm dissecting it. Look, they're going to tell you everything's fine. So if they're going based on those numbers, then what? Then what do you say? Is it actually going to be able to, they're going to go through their rate hikes, and people had been hoping and praying that the Federal Reserve is going to reverse course. But the economy's strong, according to them. Spending's up, jobs numbers are up. Do you see what I'm saying here? Very interesting. Now, I want to cover something here in a moment. So stick with me, because I'm going to show you what's going on with the financial system. It is much more, much more fragile than what people would have you believe. Let's look at that right now. This is a crisis. Why more workers need access to retirement savings. You see, the savings rate itself has dropped down a lot. Inflation is up considerably, and people are dipping into their home equity line of credit and, of course, their 401ks. This is a crisis. Dreams of a comfortable retirement may elude many Americans due to lack of adequate savings. The problem starts with not having access to retirement plans at work. Now, come on, let's let's be honest here. The inflationary forces initially started by all of the activities of the central banks and, of course, the government with their stimulus are responsible for creating this mess. I am not going to lie to you today. Fed's Barkin sees long-term U.S. labor constraint keeping inflation heat. That's important because if you see how tight the market is in one measure, and that is job, there's help wanted signs everywhere. Now, maybe people don't want to work for minimum wage. I get it, not glamorous and so on. Don't worry, because Flippy the robot and Chippy the robot are going to be doing so. And if you think I just made those things up, my goodness, you got to see what's going on with automation, robotics. Huge. And by the way, I applied to get this new automation system, AI system. I don't know if you heard about it, Chat RPT, I think it's called, where you type in, information, whatever you want. You want a story, you want an essay, you want an article, you want a blog post. You input what you want, and it outputs that information for you. All these journalists that, quite frankly, aren't such real journalists with integrity, I think they might be out of a job, because you're going to be able to input a bunch of statistics, and this AI is going to output it for you 95%. So no longer do we need to have these things anymore. Jobs are being replaced right now today. In fact, that's what that individual in the previous article was talking about, why he was laid off due to some process of automation. Credit Suisse gains most since 2020 after asset outflows halted. I want to let you know, in the previous video to this one here, I talked about Credit Suisse and how they are essentially going bankrupt, and they're chopping up the company and trying to take a company that's well over 100 years old and keep it alive. And you don't have to worry, okay? Because the chairman tells Bloomberg that the bank basically stopped their outflows, okay? So everything is fantastic. Client withdrawals have been recent major investor concern, but don't worry, okay? Everything is fine. I mean, it is, right? Yeah, sure. Okay, now, this one is talking about how we have the yield curve inversion. Okay, what is the yield curve inversion? I talk about this all the time. Basically, the fact that generally when you get a bond, you're going to buy a bond, 30-year bond. That should give you a better return than a 3-month bond, because you're taking a more risk. You're giving the money out for a longer period of time, essentially like a loan, an IOU they're giving you. And so you would want a higher return, but now it's the complete opposite. Okay, that's yield curve inversion. Now, when that does happen, you tend to find that a recession follows. What they are suggesting here in this article and the chart is that, look, if you look at it over a period of like 2 years afterwards, things look positive. And why is that, though? I think that's the important thing. And that is the Federal Reserve. When these actions do take place, we do enter a recession. And then as a result, the Federal Reserve starts to cut interest rates. That's the big deal. Do you get it? Do you see what I'm saying here? All of these points are interconnected in some way, even though the mad mind of the money GPS can sometimes seem a little bit unusual. These points are all interconnected. The Federal Reserve is going through a cycle. This period is, in many ways, really repeating what we've seen before. There's differences, of course, but the cycles are there, tightening and loosening. And if you can roughly time it in a sense, you can do very well for yourself. This is important. You don't time it perfect, pick the day at the bottom, the day at the top. That's not what I'm saying. It's that you deploy more capital when there's loose monetary policy, and you kind of rein it in when there's tight monetary policy. And in general, you could do much better than the majority. Now, I was talking about this in the previous, that we would see a bottom based on what those in the markets, those investors, big time investors, were saying that October would be at least a near-term bottom for the markets. And October seemed to be that case, because we are up like 20% from the bottom. So I'd be interested, really interested, to see where this goes from here. Now, I want to break it down right now for you, take you through what you got to be looking at. So this is it right here. Let's get into the breakdown. Make sure that your job is secure within your organization. How are you going to do that? Well, number one, you've got to actually go to your employer, to your manager, and make sure that you are hitting the targets that they have set for you. And if they haven't set particular targets, ask what those are, because that's going to make a difference on your review at the end of the year. It's also going to shine a light on what you are doing actively. And in my personal opinion, you should be notifying your supervisors, managers, whatever they are, of what you're doing. Even if it's too much information, sometimes that's better because they're hearing from you directly on a regular basis. Learn new skills within your organization or business. A lot of companies, especially the larger companies, will in fact pay for your training. And some people feel shy to ask their superior. Some people think that, whatever, I'll do it next time. They like that. Trust me, these big companies especially, they really like when you go for more training. And you can get training on basically anything. A lot of that could be online, or you can go to a nearby college or university or whatever the case is and learn that new skill. They like this, and that really reflects well on you within the organization. Take courses outside of business hours. Don't think, well, hey, if they're not going to pay for it, if they're not going to let me do it during work hours, I'm not going to be interested in that. You can't think like this, okay? Because this is, in fact, the way that you're going to bring income in, and you need to be able to bring double what everyone else around you is. I know that's crazy to think about, but when you're in a group of people, and if you're not making at least double what the average around you is, you are going to lose out. That's just the way it is because of the inflationary forces and what is coming for us on a daily basis here. I don't think people understand how serious this is. Learn a skill completely outside of what you do to diversify your skill set, because you can't just be focused on one thing. Because if that thing suddenly gets automated, suddenly gets removed, or maybe you get injured and no longer can you do that task, you're going to be in big trouble. So that's my message to you. I hope it was informative. If it was, make sure to hit that subscribe, because tomorrow this video will really knock your socks off. You want to tune in? See you then. Take care.